At midnight, the Persian Gulf looks almost black. But Kharg Island is still glowing. From above, the island does not look like a normal port. It looks like a machine. Storage tanks sit in rows. Pipelines run across the ground like arteries. Loading piers reach out into the water, where tankers wait to carry Iranian crude out of the Gulf. This is not just another oil terminal. This is one of Iran's most important oil lifelines. And Iran believed it was safe. Not because America could not find it. America knew exactly where it was. Not because it was hidden. It was sitting in the open, under satellites, drones, and long-range sensors. Iran believed it was safe for one reason. America would not dare touch it. Because if Kharg Island burned, oil markets could panic. Insurance companies would reprice the Gulf overnight. Tankers could delay their routes. Buyers would start making emergency calls. The entire world would stare at one island in the Persian Gulf. So the island was protected by more than radar, more than air defenses, more than coastal missiles. It was protected by consequences. Iran believed those consequences were enough to keep America away. They were wrong. Because in modern war, destroying a target is no longer the only option. Sometimes the more terrifying move is to leave it standing. The lights still on, the tanks still full, the tanker still tied to the pier, but the machine no longer works. For the U.S. military, the question was never whether Kharg Island could be hit. The real question was how to hit it without setting the entire Gulf on fire. You do not strike the storage tanks. That creates the kind of fireball every camera on Earth can understand. You do not strike the tanker. That brings crew, casualties, shipping panic, insurance shock, and a diplomatic crisis. And you do not flatten the island. That is not control. That is escalation. So the mission became colder, smaller, more precise. Disable it. Do not destroy it. That turns an airstrike into surgery, because Kharg Island is not one target. It is a chain. Crude leaves the storage area. It enters pumping stations. It gets pushed through pipelines. It moves toward the loading piers. Then it passes through loading arms into the tanker. The storage tanks are just capacity. The tanker is just the exit. The real movement happens in between. Pumps, valves, power nodes, loading arm control systems. None of them look dramatic. None of them look like the heart of a nation's oil exports. But if they stop, the island stops. Before the strike, the first thing to approach Kharg Island was not a missile. It was intelligence. Satellites passed over the island again and again. Infrared images marked which equipment stayed hot at night. Electronic surveillance aircraft listened from a distance, waiting for the rhythm of Iranian radar. Drones did not need to fly over the island. They only had to stay far enough away to watch when tankers arrived, when they loaded, and when they left. After days of this, Kharg Island stopped looking like an island on a screen. It became a blue wiring diagram. Every pipeline had a path. Every loading cycle had a pattern. Every pressure change became part of the model. Then, the real target appeared. Not the biggest storage tank, not the brightest pier, not the tanker sitting offshore. It was a small control node behind the loading area. It connected pump pressure, loading arm controls, and oil flow safety valves. It was not impressive. It was not obvious. It did not look like the kind of thing worth a precision strike. But if that node failed, the export line stopped. The island would still be there. The oil would still be there. The ships would still be there. But the oil would not move. After midnight, the first phase began. On Iranian radar screens, the picture started to break apart. At first, the operators could have mistaken it for normal interference. The Gulf is a noisy place. Commercial ships, patrol aircraft, satellite links, drones, and coastal radars all leave fingerprints in the air. But then, the noise began to move. Several false targets approached from different directions. They were not fast. They were not flying straight at Kharg Island. They behaved like bait, pulling attention away from the real route. Iranian air defense now had a choice. Stay quiet and maybe miss the real attack. Light up the radar and reveal itself. That is the brutal trade of modern electronic warfare. If you want to see the enemy, you may have to let the enemy see you first. Along the coast, radar power increased. Air defense batteries shifted into alert. Missile vehicles began turning toward the water. The island's full alarm had not sounded yet, but inside the control rooms, the mood had changed. And while Iran watched the decoys, the real strike did not come from the obvious direction. The precision weapon came in low along the edge of the sea. It was not aimed at the storage field. It was not aimed at the tanker. It was not aimed at the whole port. Only in the final phase did it climb and narrow its target from an oil island to a single red point. A point so small it looked absurd. Too small for a missile. Too small for a war. But that was the entire idea. America was not targeting fire. It was targeting function. In the final seconds, the risk tightened. A tanker was still beside the pier. The loading arm had not fully cleared. Oil and vapor lines were close by. Iranian radar had detected an abnormal track, and the air defense system was calculating an intercept window. If the weapon drifted left, it could hit the storage area. If it drifted right, it could land too close to the tanker. If it arrived too late, the target node might isolate itself and reduce the damage. The strike had to be small, and it had to be exact. 10 seconds. The weapon corrected its angle. It passed the storage tanks, cleared the tanker, crossed the lights of the pier, then slammed into the control node. The explosion was not huge. The island did not disappear in flames. The tanker did not split open. There was no apocalyptic fireball, just one sharp red flash behind the loading area. Then the real damage began. Inside the control room, oil pressure dropped. The loading arm disengaged. The pumping station entered emergency shutdown. Safety valves closed. Alarms started firing one after another. The tanker was still there. The storage tanks were still full. Kharg Island was still standing. But the export line had stopped. The island had not been destroyed. That was the point. It had been paralyzed. At first, Iran could even claim the damage was limited. From a distance, the pier was still there. The tanks were still there. A massive fire had not swallowed the island. But a few hours later, the real problem spread. The first tanker could not finish loading. The second had to wait. The third began recalculating its route. Insurance desks raised risk estimates. Buyers started calling to confirm deliveries. The market began to understand that this was not a normal explosion. It was surgery on Iran's oil export system. The strike did not burn Iran's oil. It stopped Iran from moving it. For decades, nations protected energy lifelines with three things: location, air defense, political fear. Kharg Island had all three. It was offshore, it was protected, and it was so important that hitting it seemed too dangerous.
But modern war is changing that logic. An enemy does not have to destroy your asset. It only has to stop the asset from working. It does not have to sink the tanker. It only has to keep the tanker from loading. It does not have to ignite the storage tanks. It only has to cut the small switch that lets the oil flow. Iran thought Kharg Island was a shield. But to sensors, precision weapons, and system warfare, it was something else. A machine exposed at sea, and every machine has a switch. That night, America did not destroy Iran's oil island. It proved something worse. The future of energy warfare may not be decided by who has more oil. It may be decided by who finds the one small node that stops the oil from moving.